In 1994, Harvard Medical School did something it had never done before in its 312-year history. It convened a secret committee to investigate one of its own tenured professors, not for fraud, not for plagiarism, not for misconduct, for believing his patients. The professor's name was Dr. John Edward Mack. He was the head of the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. He won the Pulitzer Prize. He had been on Oprah. He had met with the Dalai Lama and Yasser Arafat on peace missions. He was, by every institutional metric that existed at the time, one of the most accomplished psychiatrists alive. And then he started listening to people who said they'd been taken by beings from somewhere else. And he said the one thing the paradigm could not forgive: these people are not crazy, they're not making it up. Something is happening to them. And I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to pretend it isn't real. Harvard tried to destroy him. They failed. And then on September 27th, 2004, John Mack was struck by a drunk driver while walking home from dinner in London. He was 74. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Last episode, we gave you Carl Sagan's baloney detection kit. The tools evaluated evidence. Today, we're asking a different question. What happens when the evidence is real and the system won't let you talk about it? What happens when the cage isn't around your identity, it's around an entire field of knowledge? This is the Sovereign Investigation, Volume 3. This is the Paradigm Cage.
You're listening to The Sovereign System, where the fringe meets the framework. I'm John.
And I'm Dave.
Today's episode is about a Harvard psychiatrist who won the Pulitzer Prize, ran the psych department at one of the most prestigious hospitals in the world, and then told his colleagues that alien abductions might be real. And what happened next is a story about science, courage, institutional violence, and the architecture of what you're allowed to think.
The framework is Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, the book that gave us the term paradigm shift. And the novelty spike is happening right now. The scientific community's reaction to the Pursue files is Kuhn's model playing out in real time.
And if you just found us, welcome. You're about to hear things that will make you Google a dead Harvard professor at 2 in the morning. That's normal. We've all been there. Let's go. All right, Dave, before we get to Mack, we got to talk about Kuhn, because Kuhn is the reason Mack's story makes sense. Without Kuhn, it's just a sad story about a professor who went off the rails. With Kuhn, it's a story about how all of science works and why the system does what it does to people who cross certain lines.
Exactly, John. So Thomas Kuhn, 1922 to 1996, American historian and philosopher of science. In 1962, he published a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, and it is, without exaggeration, one of the 10 most important books written in the 20th century alone. It's the book that introduced the phrase paradigm shift into English.
And can I just say, the phrase paradigm shift is now so overused that every LinkedIn influencer with a ring light uses it to describe their morning routine. I stopped eating cereal for breakfast and it was a paradigm shift. No, Kevin, that's a dietary choice. Kuhn had something much bigger in plan.
Yeah, and he really did. Here's Kuhn's argument, and it's revolutionary, which is ironic given the title. He said science does not progress in a straight line. It does not gradually accumulate facts and inch towards truth. Instead, it goes through cycles, and the cycle has 4 stages. Stage one, normal science. This is where science spends most of its time. There's a domain or a dominant paradigm, a framework that everyone agrees on. Gravity works this way. The atom looks like this. The brain does this. And scientists work within that paradigm, solving what Kuhn called puzzles. They're not questioning the framework, they're filling it in with details.
Dave, so like a coloring book, somebody just drew the lines, your job is to color inside of them.
Perfect analogy. And the important thing is, normal science is productive, enormously productive. It gave us antibiotics, smartphones, the Hubble telescope. Normal science works great until it doesn't.
Stage 2?
Yep, stage two, anomalies. Things start to show up that don't fit the paradigm. Results that the framework can't explain, data points that should be impossible. Now, at the first, the system does what any system does. It explains them away. It's a measurement error. It's an outlier. The instruments were miscalibrated, and sometimes those explanations are correct. Most anomalies are errors.
But some of them aren't.
Some of them aren't. And when the anomalies start piling up, when you've got too many results that the paradigm can't explain and can't explain away, you hit stage three.
Crisis.
Crisis. The paradigm is under strain. Scientists are confused. Some people start proposing alternative frameworks, and the establishment, the people whose entire careers are built on the existing paradigm, they resist aggressively because a paradigm isn't just a theory. It's a funding structure. It's tenure decisions. It's journal editorial boards. It's the architecture of who gets to be considered a serious scientist. Kuhn was very explicit about this. Paradigm defense is not purely intellectual. It's institutional. It's political. It's personal.
It's an egregore.
It exactly is an egregore. Episode 3, a collective thought form that sustains itself by feeding on attention and the participation of the community that believes in it.
So the paradigm isn't just an idea, it's a living structure. It has defenders, it has immune responses, it attacks things that threaten it.
Yes, and Kuhn said something brutal about how this plays out. He said, and I need to put this in my own words because it is his most famous insight, that scientific truth does not win by convincing the people who disagree with it. It wins because those people eventually die, and the new generation grows up never have learned the old ways.
Science advances one funeral at a time.
That's actually a tribute to Max Planck, but Kuhn formalized the idea, and that brings us to stage 4.
The paradigm shift.
That's right. The paradigm shift. A new framework emerges that explains both the old results and the anomalies, and the community gradually, sometimes over decades, adapts to the new paradigm, and then it becomes the new normal science, and the cycle starts again.
Now, why does this matter for this episode?
Because John Mack is the most documented case study of what happens to a person who encounters anomalies that the paradigm cannot explain and refuses to pretend that they aren't there. He is the crisis stage personified, and Harvard's investigation of him is the paradigm's immune response.
And the purse files, the whole disclosure movement?
That's the anomaly pile getting too big to explain away. The paradigm is under strain, and we're watching Kuhn's model play out in real time, and the scientific community's reaction to the Pursue files proves it. The last episode, we covered the release. This week, the scientific community responded, and it's textbook home, the paradigm defending itself. Let me walk you through 3 specific responses. Response 1, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, the SCU, published a formal analysis on May 12th. Their findings, 70% of the FBI files in Pursue released number 1 were already in the public domain. The videos had critical metadata redacted, time, date, location, range, altitude, speed. Without the metadata, the videos are scientifically useless. You can't analyze flight characteristics if you don't know where the camera was or what it was pointed at. SCU concluded that the release, quote, adds little to the advancement of the current state of the scientific study of UAP.
So the government said maximum transparency. The scientists who actually study this stuff said, you gave us recycled files with the useful parts blacked out.
Response 2. Seth Shostak, senior astronomer at the SETI Institute, told CBS News that there is, quote, no compelling evidence for extraterrestrial life thus far. David Whitehouse, BBC astrophysicist, reviewed the materials and concluded that there are optical artifacts, other fuzzy blobs, and some are obviously balloons, with, quote, no hint, no evidence whatsoever, anything artificial and alien.
Fuzzy blobs. That's the paradigm going, nothing to see here, folks. Which is, some of them probably are just fuzzy blobs. That's Sagan's kit. But the dismissal is totally and categorical. Not some of these deserve further study, but no evidence whatsoever. That's not science, that's a position.
Response 3, and this is the most important one. Christopher Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, told Defense Scoop For years, the public was told that there was little to see. The SAU noted that the Project Blue Book files released over 50 years ago actually provided greater transparency than the Pursue files. They included radar data, photographs, metadata, and full investigations. Pursue released one, gave raw sightings with no analysis.
Wait, the files the Air Force released in the 1960s were more detailed than the ones the Pentagon released last week?
According to SCU, yes, and that is Kuhn in action. And the system appears to be shifting. Maximum transparency, a .gov website, press conferences, but the actual data released is structured to be unusable for independent scientific analysis. The paradigm looks like it's opening, but the metadata redactions ensure that no independent researcher can actually prove anything without the data with the current data provided.
That's the Taleb fragility lens from episode 11. The system is fragile and it's managing the rate of anomaly exposure to avoid a catastrophic break.
Exactly. Now hold on to that thought because what happened to John Mack in 1994 is the personal version of what's happening to the entire field right now.
John Edward Mack, born October 4th, 1929, in New York City, undergraduate at Oberlin College, medical degree from Harvard, a board certified in child and adult, a psychoanalytic biography of T.E. Lawrence, Lawrence of Arabia.
Let me emphasize what that resume means. This is not a UFO guy. This is not somebody from the fringe who wandered into mainstream science. This is somebody who was at the center of mainstream psychiatric research. He was studying dreams, nightmares, adolescent suicide, nuclear war psychiatry, Middle East peace negotiations. His work on the psychological dimensions of nuclear threat led to meetings with world leaders. His biography of Lawrence earned him the highest literary prize in America.
The man had the keys to the building. He was the building.
And then in 1990, everything changed. The journalist Ralph Blumenthal, who later wrote a biography of Mack, told the story of an interview with George Knapp on Mystery Wire. Mack was visiting his friend Robert J. Lifton, the renowned psychiatrist known for studying Nazi war criminals, and somebody at the gathering introduced him to Bud Hopkins,
Who's Bud Hopkins?
an artist and UFO researcher who had been documenting abduction accounts. Hopkins introduced Mack to the phenomenon, and Mack's reaction was, by all counts, I need to investigate this myself, and he didn't accept it. He didn't dismiss it. He said, I'm a psychiatrist. These people are claiming extraordinary experiences, and my job is to evaluate what's happening to them.
That's the sovereign inquiry protocol right there. He didn't armor up with either belief or dismissal. He went and looked.
He spent years conducting clinical interviews with people who reported abduction experiences. He called them experiencers, not abductees, because he didn't want to label the predetermined what had happened. He eventually worked with close to over 200 subjects. He used his full psychiatric training to assess them. And here's what he found. Blumenthal quotes Mack's conclusion directly. I'm a psychiatrist, so my specialty is the human psyche and the human mind. So I can tell you certain things. These people are not crazy. They're not mentally ill because I've interviewed so many. That's what I do for a living, so I know this. These people are not making it up. They're not fabricating it. It is not a hoax.
Now, I want to pause here because I can already hear two grooves running in people's heads.
Name them.
Groove 1. See? A Harvard professor said it's real. Aliens are real. Groove 2. He clearly lost it. Smart people go crazy all the time. Just because he's from Harvard doesn't mean he's right. Bro, both grooves are lazy. Both skip the hard part.
The hard part?
That Mack didn't say aliens are real. He said these people are not mentally ill. They are not lying, and something happened to them. And that I cannot explain using the tools my field has given me. That's a much more nuanced position, and it's much more terrifying one because it means the paradigm has a hole in it.
And that's exactly what we made the paradigm attack. In 1994, Mack published a book called Abduction: Human Encounters with Aliens. It became a bestseller. He went on Oprah, he was everywhere. And then the dean of Harvard Medical School, Daniel C. Tolstenson, took an unprecedented step. He convened a secret ad hoc fact-finding committee to investigate Mack's clinical care and research methods. According to the BBC's Angela Hind, it was the first time in Harvard's history that a tenured professor was subject to such an investigation.
Let me make sure I'm hearing this right. Harvard, 300 years of professors, and they have never investigated a tenured professor before? Not for anything? And the first time they do, it's for a guy who said my patients aren't crazy?
The committee was chaired by Dr. Arnold Relman, former editor of the New York, England Journal of Medicine. And here's where Kuhn comes in. Relman said something revealing. He acknowledged that, quote, "We quickly came to the conclusion that he had the right to investigate any issue he wanted to, no matter how weird. After all, Galileo sounded weird to many people of his day."
So they admitted the topic was legitimate.
The topic, yes. The methods, however, no. The committee's problem with Mack's use of hypnotic regression, a technique used where you guide someone into a deeply relaxed state to recover memories. Now, that was the mid 1990s. Um, the memory wars era, if you will. There was a massive scientific debate about whether recovered memories under hypnosis were real memories or confabulations. Professor Chris French of the Anomalistic Psychology Research Unit at Goldman's, London, later told The Lancet that, quote, "The problem with hypnotic regression is you get pretty much what you expect to get."
So the critique was you're using a technique that might be creating the very experiences you're documenting?
Yes, that is a legitimate scientific critique, and Sagan's Kit, episode 13, would flag it. Tool 8, Occam's razor, is the simpler explanation that these people are having real encounters with non-human intelligence, or that hypnotic regression is producing false memories that conform to the experiencers and the therapist's expectations. Occam's points towards the latter.
But Mack's response was interesting. He didn't say hypnosis proves aliens exist. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, the experiences have consistent features across patients who haven't talked to each other, across cultures, across continents. The emotional and psychological responses are genuine, and many of the memories were present before hypnosis. The sessions deepened existing recall. They didn't create it from nothing.
And the committee, after 15 months, ruled in his favor. Sort of. In August of 1995, they reaffirmed Dr. Mack's academic freedom to study what he wishes and to state his opinions without impediment. But a separate letter from the dean put concerns about his method on the official record.
So they said you can research whatever you want, and also we think your research is questionable simultaneously.
That's the paradigm's compromise. They couldn't fire a tenured Pulitzer Prize winner for studying a weird topic. Alan Dershowitz, Harvard law professor, publicly questioned whether you could even investigate a tenured professor for thinking unusual thoughts. So they did the next best thing.
They marked him.
They marked him. After the investigation, Mack published a sequel in 1999, Passport to the Cosmos, Human Transformation and Alien Encounters, and Arnold Riemann told the Los Angeles Times in 2001 he's not taken seriously by his colleagues anymore.
That sentence, he's not taken seriously by his colleagues anymore. That's the paradigm's kill shot. They didn't fire him. They didn't strip his tenure. They made him invisible. They turned the Pulitzer Prize winner into the guy nobody sits with at lunch.
And then a journalist named Donna Bassett faked an abduction story that Mack believed. It was later revealed as a deliberate deception, and that became the narrative. This guy's gullible, his methods are flawed, he's a cautionary tale.
Dave, I want to talk about this honestly because I know our audience, half of them are going, the system destroyed him because he was too close to the truth. And the other half are going, he got fooled by a journalist. Maybe his colleagues were right. And I think both of those are partially truths.
Go.
Mack was a brilliant psychiatrist who encountered something his field couldn't explain. His response, to keep investigating instead of dismissing, was courageous. His use of hypnotic regression was a legitimate methodological vulnerability. Being fooled by Bassett was an embarrassment. His colleagues' reaction was also Kuhn's paradigm defense operating exactly as predicted. All of those things are true simultaneously. The sovereign position is not to pick the comfortable one, it's to hold all of them.
And here's what gets lost in the debate. The substance of what Mack documented. Consistent cross-cultural experience, genuine psychological responses, transformational psychological effects. Those data points didn't go away because his method had flaws. The anomalies are still anomalies. The paradigm still doesn't have an explanation for them. Kuhn would say, you can discredit the messenger, but the anomaly pile keeps growing.
All right, September 27th, 2004. Mac is in London. He'd just given a presentation at the T.E. Lawrence Society Symposium in Oxford, back to his Pulitzer work. His talk was so well received, they asked him to do a second one. He was in good spirits. He went to dinner with friends, and on his walk home, late at night, while crossing a street in North London, he was hit by a car.
The driver was Raymond Trzowski, 52, of L Street, England. He was arrested at the scene under suspicion of driving under the influence of alcohol. He later pleaded guilty to careless driving while intoxicated and was sentenced to 15 months in jail.
Now, here's something I think says more about John Mack as a human being than anything else in this story. His family, his ex wife, his girlfriend, his grown children wrote to the Crown Court asking for leniency. They said, although this was a tragic event for our family, we feel Mr. Krivzowski's behavior was neither malicious nor intentional, and we have no ill will toward him. They said they believed Mack would not have wanted the man to go to jail.
Despite the family's request, Trzowski was sentenced to 15 months.
Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I know the groove that just activated. Drunk driver, convenient timing. The most prominent alien abduction researcher in the world gets hit by a car. I get it. I felt it too.
And this is where we have to run the kit. Sagan's episode 13 tools and Kuhn's framework.
Let's do it.
Sagan's Tool 1, Independent Confirmation. The accident was investigated by London's Metropolitan Police. A suspect was identified, arrested at the scene, charged, tried, and sentenced. The family accepted the explanation. There was no second car, no cover-up, no mysterious circumstances that left unresolved. Peter Robbins, a UFO researcher who specifically investigates suspicious deaths in the field, examined Mack's case and concluded it was one case he could not attach suspicion to. He said so publicly at a UFO conference.
So the guy who investigates UFO related suspicious deaths looked at Mack's death and said, this one isn't suspicious.
That's right. And Johnny Mack's Institute's own statement published by Will Birchie, who worked closely with Mack, said, quote, there is no cause for expecting foul play under the circumstances or situations like this. Everyone knows that London's traffic is exceedingly dangerous.
So, unlike Amy Extridge, where there are contested accounts, congressional testimony, directed energy weapon claims, and an FBI investigation, Mack's death has a clear, verified, legally adjudicated explanation: a drunk driver.
Correct. And this is where intellectual honesty matters. We covered this in episode 13, Sagan's Tool 4, Spin More Than One Hypothesis. If we claim every researcher death is suspicious, we lose credibility on the cases that actually are suspicious. The sovereign position is some deaths are what they appear to be, some are not. You evaluate each one independently.
But, Dave, and I think this is the deeper point, John Mack didn't need to be physically killed. The paradigm had already done its work. By 2004, his reputation among his colleagues was effectively destroyed. He's not taken seriously by his colleagues anymore. That's not a bullet, that's something worse in some ways. That's institutional erasure. That's making a Pulitzer Prize winner a punchline.
And that connects to the pattern, not physical death, professional death, which is what the Identity Cage, episode 5, looks like at the institutional level. The cage isn't just in your head, it's in the structures that determine who gets published, who gets funded, who gets taken seriously, and who gets investigated by secret committees.
Mack's body died in a crosswalk, his career died in a committee room, and the question Kuhn forces us to ask is which death did more damage to the field of inquiry? Tool time. What do our architects walk away with this week?
We have now given you 7 questions. The Sovereign Detection Protocol from episode 13. Today we're adding a layer on top, the paradigm audit. This is for a specific situation when you realize that the resistance you're encountering to an idea isn't about the evidence, it's about the structure.
When the cage isn't personal, it's systemic.
Kuhn identified 5 markers that tell you're inside a paradigm defense, not a genuine scientific disagreement. Here they are, adapted for the sovereign system. Marker 1. The attack shifts from the evidence to the person. When the critique stops being your data is wrong and becomes you're not a serious researcher, that's a paradigm defense. Mack's colleagues didn't refute his data. They said he's not taken seriously anymore, and that's ad hominem dressed up as a professional judgment.
Marker 2. And this is one I see everywhere. The goalposts move. When Mack started, the criticism was there's no serious scientists studying this. Then a serious scientist studied it. The criticism became his methods are flawed. If his methods had been perfect, the criticism would have become the sample size is too small. Then the sample isn't diverse enough. The paradigm doesn't have a threshold of evidence that would satisfy it because the conclusion is not allowed.
Marker 3. Institutional process replaced intellectual engagement. Harvard didn't publish a paper refuting Mack's findings. They convened a committee to review his clinical care. The response wasn't scientific, it was administrative. When the institution deploys process instead of argument, that's a paradigm defending its territory.
Marker 4. The social cost is disproportionate to the claim. Mack said something is happening to these people and I can't explain it. That's a modest claim. The response was a 15-month secret investigation, the first in Harvard's history. The punishment doesn't fit the crime, which tells you the crime isn't what they say it is. The crime is threatening the paradigm.
Marker 5. The anomalies persist after the person is silenced. They discredited Mack. He died. The abduction experiences didn't stop. The Pursue files just came out. The anomaly pile is bigger than ever. If the paradigm defense was about the truth, silencing one researcher would have resolved it. It didn't. The anomalies are the same anomalies Mack documented 30 years ago, and now they're on a .gov website.
So the paradigm audit is 5 questions you ask when you feel the resistance. 1. Is the attack on the evidence or the person? 2. Are the goalposts moving? 3. Is the response institutional or intellectual? 4. Is the social cost proportionate to the claim? 5. Do the anomalies persist after the messenger is silenced? 5 markers. Run them on the Pursue files, run them on the missing scientists coverage, run them on Amy Exrich, run them on the lab at work that won't listen to your results, run them on the relationship where you're not allowed to bring up certain topics. This isn't just about UFOs. Paradigm cages exist everywhere, in your company, in your family, in your own head.
And the full stack is now the Sovereign Detection Protocol, 7 questions for evaluating any claim, the Paradigm Audit, 5 markers for identifying when the resistance is structural, not evidential, and the Sovereign Inquiry Protocol, 5 questions for maintaining your own clarity. 17 tools total from 8 frameworks across 14 episodes.
We're building an operating system, architects, not a podcast. Sovereign win homework?
This week's assignment is called the Mack test. Think of one thing you believe that people around you would consider weird, unserious, or professionally dangerous to talk about. Not something trivial, something that matters to you intellectually or personally, that you've kept quiet because the social cost felt too high.
Then run the paradigm audit on the resistance you've encountered. Is the pushback about your evidence or about you? Are the goalposts fixed or moving? Is the response intellectual or social?
You don't have to do anything with the results, not yet. The audit isn't an action plan, it's a diagnostic. Know the shape of the cage before you decide whether to break it.
And if you want extra credit, go read Mack's original 1994 book, Abduction. Not because it'll convince you aliens are real, because it'll show you what courage looks like in institutional context. The man risked his entire career because he wouldn't lie about what he observed. Whether you believe his conclusions or not, that's a posture worth studying.
Also, go to war.gov/UFO, read the Pursue files, run the Sovereign Detection Protocol from the last episode, and the Paradigm Audit from this one. See what you find.
Now, I want to close with something. John Mack was at a dinner party in 1990 when someone introduced him to the alien abduction phenomena. He could have laughed. He could have changed the subject. He could have said that's not real science and gone back to his nuclear war research. He had every reason to walk away. He was 61 years old at the peak of his career with a Pulitzer Prize and the department chair. He had nothing to gain and everything to lose. And he went and looked. Not because he believed, because he was curious, because 200 people were telling him something extraordinary, and his training said, listen to the patient. Amy Exkridge, episode 13, built a public institute because she thought visibility would protect her. John Mack used the most visible institution in the world, Harvard, as his platform. Both of them believed that doing the work in the open was safer than doing it in the dark. And the system went after both of them. Exkridge at 34 and Mack at 65 when the communities came, and 74 when the car came. Carl Sagan, episode 13, said science is a candle in the dark. Kuhn says the dark isn't just ignorance, it's the paradigm itself. The structures that tell you what's real and what isn't, what's serious and what isn't, who's credible and who's a joke. The cage isn't always in your head. Sometimes it's the institution. Sometimes it's in the funding structure. Sometimes it's the look a colleague gives you when you bring up the wrong topic. The candle doesn't just illuminate the darkness out there, it illuminates the cage you didn't know you were in. Be the architect.
The Sovereign Investigation, Volume 3, The Paradigm Cage.
See you next week. I'll be the one at the dinner party asking the weird questions.
That's not new.
No, but now I've got 17 diagnostic tools and a dead Harvard professor backing me up. The game has changed, Dave.